Hey, what's up, everybody? It's your Tuesday edition of Pelicans Daily, brought to you by Fan Arch. I'm your host, David Grubb, editor in chief of thebirdrights.com. And it is game day for the New Orleans Pelicans. They will play the Brooklyn Nets on Tuesday night at 6:30. We'll talk about that in just a minute. But first, we'll get into some just thoughts about the NBA and the Pelicans as the Final Four has passed. So, you know, it's time to start thinking about the draft. And first and foremost, folks will be thinking about the lottery and the positioning for the Pelicans there. So, as of Tuesday, the Pelicans are still fourth in the odds. They'd still be sitting fourth in the race for the best odds to win the lottery and have the right to draft Cooper Flag. Um, look, I think that the Pelicans' fourth is where they were destined to end up once this season kind of ended, kind of went badly. And yes, the season started badly, but once you officially knew this was going bad, fourth is about the best you think the Pelicans could do. And I know folks are going to say, well, no, they had opportunities to tank; they could have been worse. Ultimately, once Zion Williamson got healthy, you were going to win some games just because you had Zion Williamson. And the Pelicans did everything they could um, reasonably to not allow Zion to have too much impact on the games. The minutes restriction at some point, as well as the restrictions on back to backs and things like that, that Zion himself said he felt as if he was ready to play. You saw from the way that he was impacting games that he was capable of playing more than 28, 29 minutes. He rarely went over 30 minutes while he was on the court this season, and he could have done more. So the Pelicans did what they could to reasonably get an evaluation of where Zion was. And quite honestly, I don't blame them for that. When you had Zion coming back from this hamstring injury, you wanted to see who he was mentally as well as what he was capable of physically, because this was the test. If you were going to even think about trading Zion Williamson, if you were even going to think about moving on from him as the face of the franchise, you needed to know what you were getting rid of. And I think that the Pelicans wanted Zion again, especially once they traded Brandon Ingram. What was Zion's reaction going to be as far as his discipline and taking care of himself? Was he going to continue to embrace, okay, we're handing this over to you again? Um, are you going to step up and be the leader for the New Orleans Pelicans? I think for the most part, Zion showed that he wanted to be the guy. The way he competed when he was on the court, that's never really been in question, but I think you saw some maturity to his basketball game, and that was important. And then the other part of that um, was that he came back physically prepared to compete. He stayed in shape throughout the season. Even when he did miss games, you didn't see him come back and say he was heavier. You didn't notice that he was more out of shape than before. He was still ready to compete. And so I think that that was some maturity on his part um, as far as all the aspects of his career. That doesn't mean, however, that the trade rumors will stop when it comes to Zion Williamson. Uh, as long as Zion is, uh, as long as the Pelicans don't win, and as long as Zion has frustrating moments where he is not available, as he has not been for the majority of his career, again, he has as many seasons where he's played fewer than 30 games, and that would be three now. This would be the third, as he's played 60 games in his career. So, for Zion, the trade rumors are going to be there. People are going to think that he's also, because of his talent, he's going to be a target for teams too. You want somebody with his level of talent joining your team. Why wouldn't you? If you think that he could be available for a reasonable price and you're trying to get good and you're betting on the fact that he could get healthy and he's only 24 years old, yeah, there are teams that are going to be out there. One of the latest rumors is that Zion could be joining the Detroit Pistons in the offseason. It is my belief that the Pelicans are not trading. They didn't do all of this offseason to trade Zion Williamson. Okay, even the only way I could see them trading Zion this offseason is if they get the number one pick. And even then, I think that they'd be more likely to want to see what Zion and Cooper Flag do together than to trade um, Zion before they ever get on the court together. So I think it's just unreasonable at this point to think that the Pelicans would trade Zion Williamson after all they've gone through to get to this point and have just started to see the benefits of what his game could look like if he is in shape and motivated and you put the right roster around him. The timetable remains an issue, and that'll be something that we continue to talk about. But as far as for right now, I don't see the Pelicans trading him. But there are rumors again that Zion could be traded. So the Pistons are the team that's been connected to him, and I think part of it would be, the management connection. Trajan Langdon has been a part of the Pelicans front office since David Griffin joined um, as the vice president of basketball operations. Now Trajan is in charge in Detroit. The Pistons made a big turnaround, going from 12 wins to now they have a chance to finish as high as fifth in the Eastern Conference standings. And that is a great turnaround for them. Uh, and they have Cade Cunningham, a guy who has a chance to be the most improved player in the league. If that's your definition of the award, I think it's weird to give a number one pick, somebody taken super high, um, and the most improved player award. But if that's what they want to do, fine. But I'm not arguing against the main thing I'm not arguing against is either Cade Cunningham's talent or his productivity this season. Those are things I'm not arguing against. I'm just talking about the definition of most improved player, what that is. But if Zion Williamson were to go to Detroit, what would that look like? Would the Pelicans want somebody like Tim Hardaway Jr.? I don't think so. Malik Beasley is an interesting piece in the short term. Dennis Schroeder, um, those guys, they're all actually all their contracts, you know, they'd have to be resigned because those are expiring deals. I'm sorry, the deal. So maybe it would be Tobias Harris or an Isaiah Stewart to give the Pelicans some flexibility as a stretch four for Tobias Harris, remains productive. Just it just always feels like he's overpaid for his level of productivity. Isaiah Stewart gives you interior toughness, rebounding, still not a lot of height there, but a good player inside. Ron Holland the second could be part of that as well. But again, I don't see that the Pistons, even if they're interested in making the deal, I think that you're building around Cade Cunningham. Yes, they want to get better, but they want to make sure that they don't have people starting to look away from Cade already. I think that even for Cade, you want to kind of grow into your role. So find players when you're ready to go for it, championship wise. Then I think they'll be ready to make that addition. But first, I think you need to build this team and give Cade Cunningham the opportunity to figure out what that is going to look like in Detroit and see if you can repeat the success that you've had in this first season. You can add that piece again later. Um, and I think if Zion Williamson is going to be traded, it would be later into next season or after next season at the earliest. I don't see it being this off season, and I don't see the Pelicans being super interested in a Zion Williamson trade, what Detroit has on its roster. I think there are pieces that Detroit has that the Pelicans could be interested in moving other people on this roster, but I don't think that those pieces are attractive enough to give the Pistons Zion Williamson. All right. Um, The Pelicans will play on Tuesday night, as we talked about, when they visit the Brooklyn Nets. Um, Only two games remaining against the Eastern Conference. This is one of those two. The Nets, also a tanking team. They are not too far behind the Pelicans, so this is kind of an important one. The Nets are in sixth place in the lottery NBA standings for the draft lottery odds. They are again, but they are closer. They have to get past Philly and due to tiebreakers and things like that. But the Pelicans have a good grasp, and I think again with the way that the schedule breaks down over the next few days, as the season comes to an end, the Pelican schedule is really difficult for them to kind of try to look at some Pelicans losing too much ground against the Nets. Nets have 25 wins. Pelicans have 21 wins. That's a four-game difference with 4 games to play. A four-game difference with 4 games to play. Pelicans are not winning all four of their games, so Brooklyn is not going to catch them. I just don't see that happening. Um, though the Pelicans could, kind of fall back into a little bit of territory at 5, but that's it just doesn't seem like a major concern for me. Anyway, both of these teams are coming off losses. Both of these teams are playing with a lot of backups. You're not going to see many starters um, for either one of these teams. So I think what you're going to continue to look at for the New Orleans Pelicans is just the development of the young players. Antonio Reeves coming off 23 points in his last game in the loss to the Bucks. Shot it very well from distance. In particular, continues to shoot above 50% from 3-point range since the start of the new year. Um, he continues to look like he's been worth it as that pick, a guy who improved all 4 years while he was in college um, as a shooter, and then gets to the NBA and continues to look like a shooter and makes good decisions on the basketball court by and large, growing into his role uh, as he's been given more minutes. So it'd be interesting to watch him some more. Even me see want to continue his streak of double-digit rebound games, see him be active on the offensive glass. Can he be efficient as a scorer? 18 points against the Bucks, another opportunity for him to do a good job scoring the ball on the inside. For the Pelicans, Keon Brooks, another opportunity for him to demonstrate those qualities that um, even Willie Green compared to Najee Marshall. And I think the Pelicans are missing a lot without guys like Najee Marshall. And so if Keon Brooks can give you some of that, and can remind you for as a defender in particular and as a rebounder, those are the two areas that you want the Pelicans to get more from their wings as far as defense and rebounding. If Keon Brooks can provide that, fantastic, good job for Carlo Makovich. It's improvement on the defensive end. We know he can score. That has not been in question since he started playing this season. The big question for Carlo continues to be, can he defend at the NBA level? And so far, on a nightly basis, it's just looked like no. Outside of some nice athletic plays and blocking shots on a sequence to sequence basis, he has not been an NBA caliber defender. And you want to see Carlo start to turn that around. Um, the Pelicans, I mentioned it a second ago. Mentioned it just a second ago that the Pelicans have to get better against the East. 8-20 against the Eastern Conference this season. And over the Willie Green tenure, um, prior to the season, they had gotten better against the Eastern Conference every year. In Willie's first season, they were 11-19. Um, the second season, 13-17. Last year, 19-11. This year, 8-20. Uh, Even if they split these last two games, because they got the Bucks, remember, on Thursday, that'll be their final game against the Eastern Conference. So you got the Nets and the Bucks. So it's even if they split, they'll be 9-21, which would be the worst of these 4 seasons. But this has been a persistent problem because we know that the Eastern Conference is the lesser of the two conferences. You have to be winning against the Eastern Conference. And the New Orleans Pelicans have had their problems against the Eastern Conference dating back even before Willie Green took over. When you talk about teams like their struggles against the Orlando Magic in particular, to last year getting swept by a very bad Chicago Bulls team. It just this continues to happen when with the Pelicans against the East, and I think until they figure this out, it's funny because every year folks always say it'd be so much better if the Pelicans were in the Eastern Conference. But unfortunately, the Pelicans have not performed well against Eastern Conference teams. So they've got to start figuring that out. I don't know what the issue has been in particular, but they have not done well against Eastern teams, whether it's been at home or on the road. So it's not like some type of travel issue or whatever, but it certainly has been an issue on the as far as the record goes. And if you've got a below 500 record overall over a four-season span against the lesser of the two conferences, it means your team is still not where you want it to be talent and execution wise. So a lot of work still needs to be done for the New Orleans Pelicans. And I think that there's no better indicator of that than their record against the Eastern Conference. All right, that's going to do it. Tomorrow we'll certainly be able to recap this game against the Brooklyn Nets. We'll see what happens there for the Pelicans and whether or not we are talking about a win against the Eastern Conference or not as we wind down this regular season. Until then, I'm David Grubb, and you can check me out on social media at DM Grubb, or you can visit thebirdrights.com to get more on the New Orleans Pelicans each and every day. Um, and don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share this with other Pelicans fans. And make sure you leave your questions if you want me to talk about particular topics or subjects. Just leave those below, and I'll try to hit you up and definitely give you a shout out here in the show. So until the next time, again, I'm David Grubb. Enjoy the game, and I'll see you tomorrow.